Hello, it's Konflux Community Architecture Call. Today is 19th of November, and we have some topics in the agenda. Carlos, your first one. Please start the topic.
So the first item is Brian. So suppose he's not going to come along and present it.
Yeah, so since Brian is not here, so I decided to switch to the next topic is in the agenda. And if Brian joins a bit late, so we will back to his topic. So, Carlos, could you start, please?
Charles, I think that Mikola was trying to ask if you could give your topic.
Is it a question for me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was still waiting. So maybe before that I do my presentation and also a quick demo, I will take the time to maybe introduce a bit what I did. So some weeks ago, I was discussing with Brian the idea to try to simplify as much as we can the process to install Konflux. That was, let's say, a kind of joke, because as you know, until now, if you want to install Konflux locally, the project upstream propose different bash scripts that we can use for that purpose. So based on, let's say, this joke, at the beginning, I started the process to investigate what it could be possible to do to simplify this process. And this is exactly what I will present demo today. So before to make the demo, I will present some slides. So what I will do, I will share my, if I can do that, my machine. Do you see the slide?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So what I will first do is to explain the motivation behind what I will call the migration of the existing way to install Konflux locally to a new approach. I will introduce also the tool that I am currently using, which is called idpbuilder, and I will demo a little bit because, as you can imagine, trying to reinstall Konflux is not something that we can do in a few minutes. That takes time. So we'll start with a pre-install version, and you will see from what I did that you can quickly and easily also install Konflux, configure it without the need now to play with different bash scripts. So the motivation has been since the beginning to try to remove the existing bash script, but to reuse the existing code, which is a collection of different customized and, let's say, static files which exist under the Konflux project. The second motivation point was to adopt what I can call a more GitOps principle philosophy, was also to try to automate as much as we can the installation and also the configuration. Keep in mind that when you install Konflux locally, we have to install, let's say, different packages, Keycloak, Tekton pipeline as a code, but also we have to configure it. If, by example, we would like to use SME, which is a small project exposing, let's say, a proxy able to forward the request to your own local instance. If, of course, you would like to use GitHub applications where we have to set an ID, a webhook identifier, and also a private key, again, we have to perform some step and to configure the different secrets on the platform. And of course, the idea was, like it is also already the case today, to organize the project as a collection of packages that we can install as Argo CD application. To perform, let's say, this migration, I decided to use a tool that maybe some of you already know. It's called idpbuilder. It's part of a, let's say, a cousin of the Cloud Native Cloud Foundation community. It used a different name because the guys behind this project were like to create a kind of expertise around the way that we organize the package, we deploy, we configure the app-to-app patterns. So this project is part of the CNU, Cloud Native Organization Excellence. This is not the most important thing. What is really important to keep in mind? With idpbuilder tool, which is a client tool, you have the possibility to create a kind cluster with some core components, Ingress, Gitty, Argo CD. This is important to know that Gitty is there because it can be used for your own project, let's say your own Git source project, but it can also be used as image registry. From this point of view, that will simplify your life. No need anymore to use an external Docker up or Quay repository. Just use the internal repository. Argo CD, of course, will be deployed as core package. And when you will create an application, when you will create a local new kind cluster, all the different services, Gitty, Argo CD, Ingress, let's say, all the new application that you want to expose as an Ingress root will become available under the domain name cnu.localtest.me. It can be used locally or remotely. Remotely means that if you install it on a SSH, on a machine where you have access using SSH, you can, let's say, do a port forwarding, and you can also remotely access the platform. In the future, it will be also possible to change the IP address of the remote machine. It works more or less. It does not work yet with Konflux, but you can also create a cluster with your own domain or your own IP address. And one of the cool features is also that you can pass a collection of packages, which are finally Argo CD application, to the tool creating the cluster. And what you will do, this is what I will show you here, it will synchronize the resources. So part of the process, let's say, to create a new cluster, this is step number one. You create a kind cluster, which is represented by this, let's say, orange square box. Second step will be that the core component will be deployed. I repeat, we deploy Ingress, Gitty, Argo CD, and when the core component have been deployed are healthy, and if you have passed a collection of different packages, unfortunately, this is not represented here, part of the slide, we can push from a local dir resources file to the Gitty repository, and because Argo CD is connected with this Gitty local repository, every application custom resource or application set custom resource will be deployed on the platform. So what do I need to play with idpbuilder? That's pretty simple. Just install Podman, or if you prefer Docker. You need kubectl OC, but this is optional. And you have to install the idpbuilder tool. This is the script, which is also proposed part of the documentation that you can use to install it. When idpbuilder is installed, today you will play with, let's say, maximum 3 commands. One, to create a cluster. You can use the by default command idpbuilder create. Then automatically a kind cluster with the name local dev will be created. But now if you want to customize the cluster, you have many different attributes, parameters that you can use. You can set the name. Host, I repeat, this is when you want to use your own domain name or a different IP address. Port is when you want to expose the different services within your browser using a different port number. By default, this is the port 8443, but you can change it. You can also provide your own kind config. This is interesting for one reason that I will show you for Konflux. When today we install Konflux, there are still many images which are hosted on Docker Hub. As you know, since at least 1 year, Docker generate a beautiful Docker rate limit error. And when you want to bypass this error, what you can do is to mount an authentication configuration file as extra mount point, part of the kind config file, and then automatically kind will be able to bypass the Docker rate limit. You can also specify which kube version you want to use. You can also set the log level. I will not, let's say, enumerate all the commands. Please have a look to the tool, play with the tool locally, and you will be able to find what it is possible. This parameter is interesting. When you, let's say, create a new project where you define different packages to be installed, most of the time you will kill your existing cluster and you will recreate a new one. With IDP cluster, simply pass the argument recreate, and then automatically a new cluster will be recreated with your own packages. This slide is finally the most important. This is how you will be able to parse a collection of different packages, which I repeat are simply URL pointing to a project hosting your customized or Helm chart or let's say Argo CD application resources, and then automatically the tool will install the different custom packages. We set up with the idpbuilder cluster a cluster containing by default 3 services: Ingress plus Git, Argo CD. So to have access to the different credentials that you should be aware and to be connected to Git using the web UI or Argo CD, simply use this command. We are still in the process to improve it and to provide more information, but until now, this is the command which is working and that you can use to get the credentials to access the cluster. So it's time to have a look now to a quick demo. So what I will do, I will exit from the slide presentation. I will come back later. Huh? Do you see now the terminal?
Yes.
With DBG? Okay, so what I will do, I will simply create a new cluster. I will call it demo. I will change the port number because if I don't do that, I will get a beautiful conflict because until now I already have a cluster which has been created for Konflux. And this one, as you can see here, run on the by default port number, which is 8443. So I will create a new one. We output, when we execute the command, the config file, which is used by kind. So that gives you the possibility to copy paste the file, maybe to do some change. And next, to replay the command where you set your own kind config file. At the beginning of the process, as you can see, IDP cluster builder, will create a new cluster. You have to know that the tool uses the Go kind library. This is why it can create a kind cluster or it can delete a cluster. Next, we deployed different stuff on the platform. Ingress. When Ingress is there, Git. It's not easy with this lock with the log messages which are reported and to see exactly what it happens. But what we can do is to have a look in parallel to the kind cluster. As you can see, Argo SysD is currently deployed like Git. Ingress should be there soon, and they are deployed out of the box on a kind cluster. And when the process is over, let's say, then the client will exit and will show us the by default command to be used to access Argo CD. We should see it very soon. Because as you can see, all the pods, they are up and running. So the process worked very fine. We have now two Podman containers, one for my Konflux, the other for demo. And to access to Argo CD, I can, if I return back to, sorry, give me 1 second. So if I go back to my browser, I can now access Argo CD. This is not the purpose of my demo, to show you Argo CD, of course. I will show you now Konflux, but I am using the command I was mentioning within the slide. So Argo CD has been deployed with the two default core components, Git, Argo CD, and Git. Let's have a look now to what I did for Konflux, because this is important. If now you compare my branch with the existing Konflux CI project, you will discover that maybe 95% of the content is still the same. Remember, that was part of the motivation, keep as possible as much of the existing content. This is what I did. The only thing I changed has been to repackage a little bit some packages to organize them in a more, let's say, maybe fluent way. Second thing that I did has been to remove the existing bash script. Oh, I am saying I removed the bash script, but some of the bash scripts are not only today deploying the different components, but they are executing some commands to, by example, creating some secret. Such command have been moved into some Kubernetes jobs. And the last thing that I did has been to do some change in the existing file to be able, using Ingress, to redirect the traffic from the Konflux UI to Keycloak for the authentication, and to let Keycloak to return me back to Konflux UI after the authentication process. We can have a look also to what I did to replace some of the existing bash script command to create a script. This is an example. This is a job, a Kubernetes job, where, as you can see here, I just simply copy-paste the existing bash script into the job. For sure, for the future, we can have a discussion about should we continue to use Kubernetes job or to replace them with maybe some Tekton task, Argo CD workflow, something else. Let's say that should be part of the next step, which is for the future. I decided also to simplify the process and to configure SME plus GitHub application ID, GitHub private key. I decided here to use a simple Argo CD secret. Why? To keep, let's say, the proof of concept as simple as possible, to have, let's say, one place where I can push all the sensitive data until now, it's just deployed in one secret, and to have, let's say, a small process in place, able to pick up from the secret the sensitive data, to pass the information to my application set, and finally, to delegate to Argo CD the job to create the application with the env variable to run my different job, able to create a secret on the platform. Again, for the future, we should maybe discuss with you if we want to continue to work with this secret plugin, or if we want to move to something, let's say, more secure, perhaps, using the external, using the ESO operator and Vault. It's time now to have a look to what it has been deployed. So to be able, let's say, to now configure Konflux using idpbuilder, that's pretty simple. I just created a project, a branch, top of the existing Konflux CI project. It has been forked. Remember that the idea was to keep the existing resources, but to avoid to do a ugly work, part of the existing project, which is the dependencies folder, Konflux folder, testing folder, SME folder, created just a new one, which is called IDP, where I did some reorganization of the existing package. We still have the dependencies, Konflux testing, but I created some new packages, SME, secret plugin, image controller, and GitHub app secret in order to deploy what is needed on the platform. So, sorry, I will repeat. To play with idpbuilder from scratch, from the beginning, just check that you have Podman installed. Install idpbuilder. You can git clone the branch I created on the fork project. I just created here a kind file because, remember, to avoid the Docker rate limit, we have to provide our own authentication file. When this is done, just execute the same command I was able to show here a few minutes ago and deploy the different package. Until now, there are still some issues which have nothing to do with the idpbuilder, but I am not an Argo CD specialist. What I mean here is that if we want to deploy everything, which is this collection of different packages, that should work. But until now, the Argo CD application and application set are still missing some hook able to check if all the different applications that we expect to be up and healthy are there. So this is why if you try to copy paste this command and run it as one command, it could work. Most probably it will fail because we still need to find a way to validate that cert manager has been installed before that we request to create a trust bundle custom resource, before we install the registry, before we install Tecton. You see, that should be part of, let's say, of the process to improve the way that we organize the application Argo CD resources. But if you follow the instruction there, install the foundation, the dependencies, Konflux testing, which are more or less what we are doing today with the Konflux bash script. Create also your own configuration, secret configuration file containing as a key value pair, SME URL, GitHub application ID, all the sensitive data, create a secret, place it under the location which is defined within the instruction, and you should be able to create and to run Konflux. So it's time now to have a look to Konflux. I will switch to Konflux. Say to the cluster which has been created. As you can see, we have the Argo CD, let's say I will enumerate the core component part of Konflux. Build services, it's there. Image controller, it's there too. Integration services, Cloak, Konflux, UI, pipeline as a code, Tecton. So everything has been deployed, it's up and running. And if now I access the URL where the service is running, so I can access to my, oops, sorry, this is not this URL. So the first time you will log on to your local Konflux instance, it will ask you what is the username password to be used. I use exactly also the same resources which are part of the project upstream project. So I will use user 1, user 2. We have absolutely the same UI, the same functionalities. So what I will do now quickly, I will create a new application. I will add a new, of course, component. Oh, component was created before. Give me 1 second. Can I delete it? Yes, I will delete it. And I will recreate it. So let's do the demo. If we were starting from the beginning. Created a simple Quarkus application. I will use the Docker build. Docker build will fail on my machine because I am using a macOS machine and image doing the build do not support yet ARM processor, so it will not work. We can have a look to activity. Just 1 second. A pull request has been issued to my project. So we can quickly look to my project. We got a new pull request. So that proves that my local Konflux instance, which has been created, is able to communicate with my GitHub application. So I can merge this pull request. As soon as the pull request has been merged, if I go back to my Konflux instance, not this one, we can see that the build pipeline is running. Of course, I repeat, the build container step will fail because until now on macOS, ARM is not supported. But as you can see, I can play with Konflux locally, which has been deployed using idpbuilder. And the last thing that I would like to show you is what could be, let's say, now the next step. Of course, my plan is to create a pull request and to submit to the team the pull request to be reviewed and I hope to be merged. If we decide to adopt this tool, idpbuilder, as the new tool to install Konflux, we have, of course, to update also in parallel the documentation. And we should have different discussion about how we can continue the process to improve, which is certainly about, is it still needed that we use customize everywhere? Or maybe it could be interesting that we have at least for the Konflux UI and Keycloak and to mchart in order to better customize the address to redirect the traffic from Konflux UI to Konflux. Until now, this has been hard-coded, sorry, because it was not possible using Customize very simply to replace the existing resources with the URL that idpbuilder is creating. We have, like I was mentioning before, to fine-tune Argo CD in order to better manage app. I will call it the app-to-app patterns. This is what we have when we deploy an application which is composed of different packages application. We have in a certain way a kind of dependencies within the different application. So in this case, we should find a way to be sure that before, let's say, to create a bundle custom resource for the cert manager, we should have the cert manager in place up and running. We have potentially to migrate a different job to use maybe Tekton or a different technology, and certainly to replace Argo CD secret plugin with Vault and something more secure and robust. This is the end of my presentation. Do you have any question? Yes?
When you were testing this, did you use Docker or Podman?
I did my demo and presentation, and I play until now always locally using Podman or Rootless.
All right. There is some issue. There's some issue with the current Konflux installation where you have to increase the feed limit for the Podman pod manually. It's in our README doc. So did you find a way to deal with this automatically?
Not yet. I created a ticket top of the idpbuilder project because, yes, this is not an issue which is specific to idpbuilder, but which is a problem that we have on machine where we have more CPU or virtual CPU. So I tested myself different things, but until now I didn't find yet what should be the trick to implement in order to fix such a bit limit or the threat error that we have sometimes reported by some pod. But we are following the question on the idpbuilder project in order to, I hope soon, find what is the best strategy to put in place in order to get rid of this kind of annoying issue. Other question? Yes, Gal.
And thank you, Charles, for the presentation and for preparing the demo. First of all, working on it. Looks great. One thing that, in my opinion, I would prefer to have it as an additional way to install Konflux. Personally, I like to use like Kind directly and to just like run the scripts to deploy the manifest. And then if I need to make any change, I can just change the manifest and run the scripts again without going through Argo CD. So I think that we should keep like the existing way and also add like this additional way that you've just showed. I like the jobs for creating the secrets. Maybe like those, we can integrate them and remove the secret creation from the scripts.
Why do you still prefer the existing approach?
I prefer because like I don't want Argo CD in the loop. Like when I develop, I like to just like run, if I make any changes, run kubectl create and apply my manifest directly to the cluster without preparing a patch, pushing it to Git, waiting for Argo CD to do its job.
With idpbuilder, if you do a change locally, immediately they will be pushed on the cluster on Argo CD. So this is perhaps something that was not clear enough. With the command, which is idp cluster -p package, the package can be reference set using a URL. This is a Git external repository, but when I develop locally, in this case, I will point to a local directory. So if I change something within this directory, automatically information will be synchronize with Git and Argo CD.
I see.
So then simplify your job without the need to play, in this case, with the bash script.
I understand. But even though like it is possible, like it's a self preference. Maybe other people will prefer to use Argo CD for development. Like I know the experience of using it for deploying Konflux in development for development purposes, and I prefer just like using a simple script or like kubectl directly. I just think that we should have all the options so different people can use their preferred option. I don't think that we should, like if someone want to like use kind directly, I don't think that we should tell him or her, no, you must use idpbuilder and you can't use kind directly for creating the cluster. Why not?
This is a point that I think we should. Oh, sorry, my dog is shooting in the house. Yes, so this is something that we should maybe discuss separately and see how we can maybe keep in parallel the two different ways to approach it. And I can also talk with the guys from the idpbuilder tool in order to figure out if we can also still use the existing approach without the need, in this case, to use also Argo CD behind it. Because technically speaking, when we provide a package path to access a directory, we can also imagine to have a simple controller responsible just to pick up the resources and to deploy the resource as it. So I'm not also a super fan, let's say, the guys which is recommending to use Argo CD everywhere. This is until now, let's say, because it's part of the tool, a way to simplify the process to deploy packages, component, but for sure, if we can also still propose a path where Argo CD is not required at all, with what it has been done on top of a Konflux, I will be also more than happy to support this kind of deployment mode. But I will initiate a discussion on top of the idpbuilder tool because, yes, one also of the the strength of the tool is that it uses internally the kind Go library. So with this tool, we don't have anymore to request to the user to install kind, to create itself on the cluster. This is done by the tool itself.
Is there a way, I suppose it does let you connect to the cluster API with kubectl, etc., right?
Can you repeat? Sorry?
I suppose that once the cluster is up, you can connect to the cluster with kubectl or OC. Or
Yes, this is okay.
It's not my question. It's leading to.
Yes, of course.
Right. So in theory, I'm referring to what Galen said. It sounds like in theory you could do a kubectl apply or a kubectl apply -k to some files if you want to change something in the cluster, not via Argo.
Yes.
So I think
remember some of the commands which are today part of the bash scripts have been integrated in the Kubernetes jobs. Again, if you look to the content of the jobs, you can discover that we are executing inside the job some kubectl commands. So again, this is another example showing how we can also deploy something on the platform. In this case, this is done by the jobs. But yes, we still have this flexibility to do whatever we want to do. We prefer to do using also kubectl or something else, which is a job or etc.
all right.
Any other question? Yes, no?
Can you show us the Gitea UI?
What do you want to see?
The Gitea UI. You told me Gitea was part of the system.
So let's close one. So this is the Git UI. So by default, we have a Git user which has been created, and all the different components which are part of my Konflux, they have been uploaded. This is a Git repository, let's say a Git UI interface like we have more or less with GitLab or
Yeah. So is that so? You made essentially each directory in the Konflux CI repository into its own component, which becomes a different Git repository in Gitea.
yes.
Do I understand correctly?
So if we look to the command, in fact, my example, when I want to install the package IDP foundations, I just point to this folder containing different subfolders. And for each folder, because this is how it works today, we have to create an application custom resource. And in fact, it uses a mechanism which has been implemented specifically for idpbuilder. So we created here a new URI, which is called GNU, able in this case to load a folder locally, which is by default something that we cannot do using Argo CD because it uses a Git repository in this case. So here, technically speaking, all the resources part of the trust manager, cluster issuer, cert managers will be uploaded within the Git repository, and this one is the repository that Argo CD watch, and from where it will create. I need to pick up the password. Here it is. So only all the components will be created as a collection of different applications, which is the wording used by Argo CD.
So a theoretical question: could we actually, push other repositories into that Gitea instance and actually connect it to Konflux, so Konflux pipelines will run
Yes.
of it?
So because we have a password, a username, or even a token, so you can, yes, create new local repositories. And I repeat also what I mentioned during the presentation. It can also be used as images registry.
I see.
It's a feature which is also supported by Git.
And so the authentication to Konflux worked through, was it Keycloak or something else?
Nothing has been changed from this point of view. So Konflux still use Keycloak for the authentication. After the authentication, you are redirected back to Konflux UI.
Yeah.
I can do again the process. I log out. If you look at the URL, it's mentioned that you will forward the request to Konflux, to Keycloak. So the request will be sent to Keycloak. Keycloak do the authentication. He knows what should be the URL to return back if the authentication succeeded the user within the browser. So I am back to my Konflux UI, same UI that you have access using the Red Hat SaaS, let's say, environment. But the only difference has been that here, because we use it idpbuilder, you have a second service available on the platform, which is Git, a third, which is Argo CD. And if now you decide part of the process using idpbuilder creates package to deploy something else, you can also imagine to deploy additional package with UI or without UI. And the folks behind GNU created a project which is called Stacks. where contributors can publish new implementations. So there is, by example, a package where you can install, if you know this project, CNCF project Dapper. You can also install Crossplane, and there is a by default implementation, which is more complex because they also install Backstage, external secret. Right? In this case, please have a look and you can see a collection of different IDs about how you can package your own project as a collection of, I will use this word now, packages, because this is the wording used by idpbuilder in order to install your own stuff on the platform. But yes, until now, it relies mainly on Argo CD. Synchronize it with Git, and I repeat, Git could be used for your own Git repository project or as an image. I think that I deployed something, perhaps not on this one. I will have a look, because I did a test this morning, but I am not sure. No, I did it before. So when you push an image, podman, push, a tag, and stuff like that, then they will appear under the packages view. So if you want to have a look to the tool, I remember you can get the slide from the Konflux community meeting node document. And it includes the list of the different commands that you can already use and to play with the tool, and the link, of course, to the project I created, which is a branch of the existing Konflux CI in order to install a Konflux using this tool. Other questions? Are you now interested that I create a pull request in order to submit what I did? We have also this possibility to install Konflux using idpbuilder.
I will say yes. I don't think it's just up to me to decide. Hopefully, it's not a 1,000-line pull request, so we can actually figure out.
No. And for sure, we can improve it, because I repeat, until now, I created mainly a subfolder on this branch with IDP. So maybe we can, let's say, keep the existing folder in order to see how they could be synchronized. So yes, from a PR point of view, that should not be a too long PR, because I never touch the existing bash script, but just repackage it in a certain way, the existing project, into a new organization.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? So if not, thank you again for your demo and presentation. And today we have another topic from Brian. Do we have Brian here?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah, please go on.
No, I am here.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. So I will try to be quick. I don't know if we will. If we have a lot of discussion on this, we can do it next week. But basically, like, I've run into the situation a couple times recently where users are onboarding components and they get pipeline pull requests, and as soon as they get those pull requests, they're already out of date, and they then are getting renovate updates to update the pull request that they just got. And in one particular case, a user who already onboarded sort of figured out that we have some code that we still need to remove, where you can click that rollback pipeline button, and then customize button, and you can get a new pull request sent to your repo. And unfortunately, what happened there is they had newer tasks in their pipeline definition, which was working for them. And then we released another fix they wanted to get. And they thought that by reverting and then getting a new PR, it was sort of like a hack to kind of run Renovate for them, that they would get the newest tasks in their pipeline definition. But what actually happened was it reverted them to a version even older than what they had in their repo then, because what they had in the repo then was from Renovate. So this was really bad, and it kind of left them in a state that they couldn't recover from easily, because we don't have a way for them to run Renovate manually, and they had committed schedules to all their repos. And so then now they were like, they would wait 5 days for Renovate to run. This person didn't have direct access. So anyway, long-winded way of saying, I would like for us to figure out how we can get to the point where when someone puts up a PR for a task and build definitions and it gets merged, that it is immediately at the same time that we create the bundle ref should also be added to the pipeline. I see that we're like using Renovate to do that, but it's trying to run tests again in infra deployments. Sometimes the tests pass, sometimes they fail, sometimes they're delayed by tide, and in every case, it still needs a manual approver before it can be merged. But I don't think we need to run the tests again. If the tests that we're running in infra or in build definitions are inadequate, then we should fix that. But I don't think that we should need to run the infra deployment tests again if we've already run the build definitions E2E tests. Thoughts?
Well, in my opinion, it would be great to have this ability, but yeah, reasonably, we might be in a situation when we need to have delivered several changes together to the end users. So for this reason, it would be still nice to keep some manual approach, at least be able to use it at some point. And regarding other question, why do we need end-to-end tests? So I believe that tests in build definitions, they don't cover really everything, every scenario, and they are a bit of shorter version. And then infra deployments run the whole long suite, and that's why it's so long. And that's true not only for build definitions and for other services like build service image controller and so on, because for example, any operator we run operator specific tests and only cover main functionality of other parts, but infra deployments does the whole stuff. That's to my knowledge. So if we wanna change it, I'm afraid we don't want that huge run for build definitions, because it would make merging even worse than it is today. Yeah, Louis?
Yeah, I think one thing to keep in mind is that as soon as a bundle is built in build definitions, as soon as that's done after a PR was merged, that and Renovate will push those to the users right away without any sort of manual intervention on us for gating that process. And I think if we're doing that, doing the same thing for the pipeline definition is not an additional problem. So I think I don't see I think I'm with Brian on this. It was like, if it is merged, it should be available. Because right now it's merged and it's available for existing users, but it's not available for new users, which is odd and confusing. And if we do want to introduce some sort of additional gating to before an image is available to users, I think we should try to tackle both cases, not just one of them.
Yeah, I agree. Like the use case for wanting to deliver a set of changes together seems like a valid use case, but that's not actually what's happening now. What's happening now is that you might think you want to deliver 3 changes at once, but as soon as you merge the first one, Renovate is blasting it out to users. So it's really not happening. It's only happening in the onboarding PR, or in the onboarding PR.
Yes, you're right. So should we change our strategy and make it available immediately?
I think it would be more straightforward because there was a lot of confusion happening about why we had these one task version and then the other task version, and why the pipelines are giving out different tasks than Renovate is. And then if we want to go back and add things in, like for example, if we were using Konflux itself to do the task builds, like we could start using features like pull request groups if we want to start figuring out how to batch changes, right?
So technically, build service takes the definitions from a config map in the cluster, and to have that immediately available in Konflux, we basically need to update that in cluster config map. And so that's infra-specific stuff, but yes, we can reach it with Argo CD. Oh yeah, as Andrew pointed in the chat, yeah, we can use float in tag.
Yeah. So I mean, if there's general agreement that we should do this, we can work out the specific details of how to do it later. Because I know Ralph has also asked a question about like, how will this work for many clusters, right? Like Fedora will have a cluster. It sounds like, OpenShift will have a cluster. And, potentially, we will have different build definitions, repos for those different clusters at some point. So there may be something we can do quickly, and then a longer term vision that we need in order to keep downstream clusters in sync with their own pipelines with their own build definitions repos.
Okay. So thank you, Brian and guys, for the discussion. I guess we agreed on some idea and we can continue discussion in Slack. So Brian, would you create a Jira ticket so we don't lose it and can prioritize and work on it?
Yep, I will do it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Okay. So thank you all. If there is no more topics for today, then thank you all and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.